A Short History of Philosophy, From Ancient Greece to the Post-Modernist Era, by Peter Gibson. Narrated by India Shaw Smith. Introduction. This book gives an account of the philosophical ideas of the great European thinkers during the last 2,500 years. Hence the book is a history of philosophy, rather than a discussion of the lives of the famous philosophers who occasionally became involved in great historical events or tried to make a mark on the public stage, but were mainly quiet scholars, little known during their day. However, in modern times, it is often claimed that you cannot understand a thinker without a good knowledge of the culture in which they lived, and the history of ideas has emerged as a discipline to support that view. It holds that to understand the progress of influential ideas, we need to know about political power, technology, economics, religious practices, geography, and social prejudices. The assumption of this work is that even though a particular culture clearly influences the thinkers it produces, no matter how objectively rational they try to be, philosophical ideas concern themes that arise in every human culture and are of interest no matter who thought of them. This book is an account of the main ideas of those considered to be the most important European thinkers in the subject. But how do we decide what thinkers are important? It is obvious that reputations rise and fall, but that usually happens during the first 2 centuries after the death of a philosopher, so the reputations of earlier Europeans are fairly settled. The status of a philosopher is usually judged by later thinkers who achieve the greatest respect in their own times. Skeptics may suspect a conspiracy, aimed to exclude undesirables, but wildly unorthodox accounts of philosophical history, though often interesting, are not usually well supported. An obvious problem today is the place of women in the history of the subject. Modern scholars have shown that women have been much more involved in philosophy than was previously thought. In particular, they have been greatly engaged in philosophical discussions, especially in aristocratic courts, where education levels were high, and in the salons of great cities such as Paris, where intellectuals gathered and debated. However, it remains true that significant influence in philosophy relies on books rather than talk. Socrates did nothing but talk. His fame relies on Plato's written accounts of what he said. Women only moved to the forefront of philosophy when they gained entry to university education, beginning in the late 19th century, and when they were increasingly able to publish books. There are still problems of gender prejudice, but most modern philosophers judge ideas on their merits, not on the gender of the thinker. If ideas are central to philosophy, then what is the importance of the history of the subject? The physical sciences and mathematics treat the history of their subjects as a side issue, mainly aimed at giving credit to earlier heroes. A good physicist, chemist, or mathematician can ignore the history of their subject if they wish.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?